In the heart of New York City, they say, lurks a terror that remains unseen. A chilling whisper in the wind, a shadow that dances just beyond the corner of one's eye. The city that never sleeps, enveloped not in dreams, but in a haunting nightmare. A terror that leaves its mark not in what is seen, but in what remains unseen, hidden in the labyrinthine urban jungle, cloaked in the city's ceaseless heartbeat. In the clamor of traffic and the hum of electricity, in the cacophony of voices and the rhythmic pulse of the city, there lurks an eerie silence, a void that swallows all sound, all light, all hope. This silence, they say, is the harbinger of the unseen terror. But what is this terror, you ask? Therein lies the tale. New York City, with its towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, has been home to countless stories. Some whispered in hushed tones, others lost in the annals of time. Among these tales, those that chill the bones and freeze the blood have found a place of their own. Stories of strange occurrences, inexplicable disappearances, and chilling encounters that defy all logic and reason. Take, for instance, the tale of the cab driver who vanished one foggy night, his cab found abandoned on the Brooklyn Bridge, or the story of the Broadway actress who disappeared from her dressing room, leaving behind a mirror etched with a single, cryptic word. Each incident a piece of the puzzle, a hint at the unseen terror that lurks in the city's shadows. And as the city hustles and bustles, as lives intertwine and stories unfold, the terror remains a silent specter, an unseen threat. It is a part of the city's fabric as much as the towering skyscrapers and the sprawling parks, as much as the dreams and the ambitions of its inhabitants. As the sun sets, the city holds its breath, bracing for the night's horrors. And the city knows, and so do its inhabitants, for in the heart of New York City, they say, lurks a terror that remains unseen. The unseen terror. One winter night, a man named John experienced the terror firsthand. Meet John, a typical New Yorker, born and bred in the city that never sleeps. A man of simple tastes, he was no stranger to the odd and eerie tales that often circulated around the city. However, he never thought he'd be at the center of one. It was a night like any other, the city blanketed in snow, shimmering under the soft glow of the streetlights. John was returning home from his late-night shift, his footsteps crunching against the fresh snow, the only sound punctuating the winter silence. Then, things started to get strange. First, it was the sudden chill that swept over him, colder than any winter night he had ever known. It was a cold that seeped into his bones, a cold that couldn't be shrugged off. He quickened his pace, eager to escape the biting chill, but it clung to him like a second skin. Next came the whispers, soft and elusive, almost drowned out by the howling wind. They were incoherent, yet strangely familiar, a cacophony of voices that seemed to echo around him. Try as he might, John couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched, being followed. Then the shadows started to move. Dancing and weaving, they seemed to take on a life of their own. John could swear he saw faces in the shadows, eyes that stared back at him. The city that he knew so well suddenly felt foreign and hostile. Finally, just as he reached his apartment, a terrifying, inhuman screech echoed through the night. It was a sound that chilled him to his very core, a sound he would never forget. John bolted inside, slamming the door behind him, his heart pounding in his chest. The night left John shaken and scared. He couldn't explain what he had experienced, but he knew one thing for sure. Something was out there in the darkness, something unseen, something terrifying. John was never the same after that night. Haunted by his experience, John decided to investigate the unseen terror. With a newfound determination, John ventured into the heart of the mystery. He wasn't just another victim anymore, he was a seeker, a man on a mission to uncover the truth. His journey took him through the bylanes of his town, knocking on doors and probing into the lives of those who've had similar chilling encounters. His first stop was Mrs. Sullivan's quaint little house on Elm Street, a sweet old lady with an unnerving tale of how the unseen terror had once invaded her home. She spoke of strange noises, flickering lights, and an overwhelming sense of dread that gripped her every night. Then there was Mr. Rodriguez, the town's handyman, who recounted an episode of a chilling whisper in his ear while working late one night. Each story, a new piece of the terrifying puzzle. As John delved deeper, he found a pattern. Every encounter was marked by a peculiar scent, a distinctive cold spot, and a paralyzing fear that seemed to seep into the very soul of the victims. The unseen terror was not just an entity, it was a phenomenon, an inexplicable force feeding on fear itself. John's investigation was not without its consequences. Each night he was tormented by nightmares, vivid and horrifying, as if the unseen terror was warning him, threatening him to stop. But John was relentless, his resolve unshaken. He was no longer running from the unseen terror, he was chasing it. As he pieced together the chilling narratives, John stumbled upon a revelation that sent shivers down his spine. The unseen terror was not a recent phenomenon. It was ancient, as old as the town itself, a dark legacy passed down through generations. What John discovered was beyond anyone's worst nightmares. As John dug deeper, he uncovered a horrifying truth. The world as he knew it, the reality he'd been so comfortably nestled in, was but a mask for something far more sinister. Every grain of truth he unearthed seemed to shatter the illusion of safety and normalcy, a chilling reminder that the unseen terror was closer than he ever imagined. A tangible dread seeped into his soul, as if the dark abyss of the unknown had opened up beneath his feet, threatening to swallow him whole. It wasn't merely about the unseen terror anymore. It was about the horrifying revelation that the terror was no stranger. It had always been there, lurking in the shadows, woven into the very fabric of his existence. John discovered that the terror wasn't an external entity, it was a part of him, a part of us all. It was the embodiment of our deepest fears, our darkest secrets, and our most shameful regrets. It was an echo of our collective guilt and sorrow, a manifestation of the evil that resides within every human heart. This was the horrifying truth. The unseen terror was us. We were the monsters hiding under the bed, the ghosts lurking in the attic, the demons whispering in the night. We were the architects of our own nightmares, the creators of our own terror. And the more John understood this, the more he realized the futility of his quest. But amid the despair and the terror, there was a glimmer of hope. For if we were the creators of this terror, then perhaps we also held the power to vanquish it. Perhaps in confronting our darkest fears and acknowledging our faults, we could begin to heal, to mend the fractures in our souls. John knew he had to do something, but what could one man do against such a terror? The answer to that question was as terrifying as the truth itself, but John was determined to find it, to face the unseen terror within him and fight back. For it was not just his battle, but a battle for all of humanity. In a twist of fate, John found himself face to face with the unseen terror. Life has a peculiar way of serving up surprises when you least expect them. And for John, this was one of those moments. All this while, he'd been chasing shadows, trying to piece together the puzzle, and now, in a startling twist, he was standing nose to nose with the unknown. It was as if the universe had spun him around, and before he could regain his balance, he was staring into the eyes of the very terror that had been haunting him. The unseen had become seen, and the invisible was now standing right before him in all its horrifying glory. He'd had a plan, a strategy to tackle this unseen terror, but the sudden confrontation had thrown him off his game. His mind was racing, trying to compute the situation, and his heart pounded in his chest like a frantic drummer. The stakes had never been higher. The suspense had never been more palpable. This unforeseen twist was a game changer. It was no longer about solving the mystery, it was about survival. The predator had become the prey, and John was its target, caught in the crosshairs of this unseen terror. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Fear, confusion, disbelief all swirled within him, creating a cocktail of terror that coursed through his veins. But amidst this chaos, a spark of determination ignited within him. He wouldn't go down without a fight. He wouldn't let this unseen terror claim victory. The twist had turned the tables, but John wasn't out of the game yet. He was down but not out. He was terrified but not defeated. He was face to face with the unseen terror, but he wasn't about to back down. As John stared into the face of the unseen terror, he realized the truth was more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. But sometimes it is in the face of the most terrifying truths that we find our greatest strengths. And for John, this was just the beginning. With the truth revealed, John was left with a chilling decision. The air hung heavy, thick with the weight of the horrifying truth. The choice was his alone to make, a decision that could alter the course of his life and perhaps even the world. The suspense was palpable, like a haunting melody playing on an unseen piano. The question lingered, buzzing like a swarm of bees in the silent room. What will John do now? Only time will tell.